One day, something remarkable happened. Jayden kept looking at something in his pants. At first, his mother, Daisy, thought it had to do with Jayden's development, but soon she noticed there was more to it. Daisy had never experienced this before. She even decided to call the police. Jayden had been able to walk for several days. Daisy quickly realized that he enjoyed discovering new things. He walked all around the house, grabbing everything to get a good look at it. Jayden was very curious. Daisy had no idea that would force her to call the police. It was a normal day, and Jayden was again running around the house discovering new things when he was staring at something in his pants. Daisy paid no attention to it at first. But the weird thing is, he did this again the next day, and again the day after that. It wasn't that. Jayden looked and then continued walking around. He remained standing and could easily spend half an hour staring at something in his pants. Daisy didn't understand why Jayden was doing this and decided to see if there was anything strange in his pants. Daisy saw nothing strange in Jayden's pants. She thought it was odd that he was staring for so long but assumed this was just normal. Several days passed. Every day, Jayden did the same thing. He would stand in the living room and stare at something in his pants for half an hour. After a few days, Daisy made a new discovery. This made what Jayden was doing a lot stranger. She found out that every day, at the same time, he would look at something in his pants exactly at 12 and 13 p.m. Why could this be the case? Daisy decided to take a closer look to make sure there was nothing hidden in Jayden's pants, again without success. She didn't understand a thing. When her friend Lizzie came to visit, she told her what Jayden was doing. Lizzie put Daisy on a new track. To understand this properly, it is important to know that Daisy and Jayden's father are no longer together. Several months after Jayden was born, the two were separated. Unfortunately, they no longer had a very good relationship with each other. Jayden was with his mother every other week. Jayden's father's name was Mark. When Daisy was talking to Lizzie about Jayden's behavior, Lizzie asked if Mark happened to have anything to do with this. Then a light went on for Daisy. In fact, something unpleasant had happened a few weeks ago. Daisy, meanwhile, had found a new friend. She was very happy with him. Dave was his name. When Mark heard about this, he realized that he had done something that had made Daisy very sad. Mark himself was very lonely and isolated and was probably jealous of his ex-wife. Mark had put a letter in Daisy's mailbox a few weeks ago. In it, he had written very nasty words addressed to Daisy. He had also added that he was going to make her life miserable and that he did not accept that Daisy had found a new boyfriend so soon. But what did Mark's letter have to do with Jayden's behavior? Daisy had a very strange thought about that, yet this did not seem impossible to her. When she told Lizzie this, Lizzie went along with it. It didn't seem unlikely to her either. Jayden was with Mark one week and Daisy the next. Mark had said he wanted to make Daisy's life miserable. Mark was probably jealous. What if Mark wanted to use Jayden to sabotage Daisy's life? Daisy thought Mark was behind Jayden's strange behavior, not her. It could not be a coincidence that Jayden started staring at something in his pants at the same time every day. There had to be more to it. Daisy thought she was being tapped by Mark and that Mark was doing this through a chip in Jayden's pants. It did not seem unlikely to Daisy that this chip occasionally gave off a certain vibration to activate it. For example, what if this chip was activated every day at 12:30? This time also seemed very logical to Daisy. Currently, Jayden was always with his mother in the morning. Daisy was not always home. She only worked half days. There was a babysitter who watched Jayden in the mornings. This was always until noon, so 12:30 was a logical time to activate the chip. Daisy was always home with her son at that time, so Daisy decided to thoroughly examine Jayden's pants again. It was almost impossible not to find something in them, and Daisy considered the probability very high that it was a chip. She now knew what to look for. Jayden, thankfully, cooperated well every time. Again, Daisy couldn't find anything. She didn't understand a thing. She also decided to search his diaper this time. Maybe there was something hidden in here, and if she couldn't find anything in here, she could still check Jayden's shoes, although it seemed unlikely to her that there would be anything in them. Daisy was determined to find the chip, even though searching Jayden's diaper was a dirty job. And as expected, she could not find a chip in her son's shoes either. Daisy devised a new plan. This one should succeed. Even though Daisy had not been able to find the chip, she was convinced she was being tapped by Mark. Therefore, she devised an ingenious plan to catch Mark. She decided to call the police, but not just like that. She did this exactly at 12:30 so Mark would hear about it. She wanted Mark to hear this so he would know Daisy was onto him. She wanted Mark to panic. She wanted Mark to stress out in advance about when the cops would pick him up. She wanted revenge. This was the moment. By now, the agents were on their way to Daisy. The officers took the report seriously. Because a child was involved. The officers were also immediately on their way to Mark's home. That way, Mark did not have enough time to destroy any evidence. The agents arrived at both addresses. Daisy had expected the agents, but Mark was dumbfounded. Mark was immediately taken to the police. Why didn't he know about anything? Had he not yet had time to eavesdrop on Daisy? The way he thought about what it could be that he was being taken for, then he concluded, but wisely kept his mouth shut. The other officers visiting Daisy asked if they could examine Jayden. They had a special device with them that allowed them to detect the chip. Daisy, of course, gave permission to the agents. Jayden didn't mind either. He didn't understand much about it, but thought it was funny. The officers could not find anything. Daisy didn't understand a thing. Before bringing Jayden to Daisy a few days ago, would Mark have known that Daisy was planning to call the police? Daisy hoped the officers could find out more at the police station. Mark, meanwhile, was being interrogated, but to his surprise, this was not so. Because of what he thought, he didn't understand why the officers were asking him these strange questions. Why would he put a chip in his son's pants? How did the agents come to this conclusion? Mark thought he was being arrested because of the letter he had put in his ex-wife's mailbox. But this is not what the officer said at all. They kept asking Mark questions about the chip, but Mark couldn't answer them. Mark still didn't understand anything at all. After examining Jayden and questioning Mark, the officers found out that the story of the chip was not true. Mark was allowed to return home. When he got home, he called Daisy. Jayden was involved in this, so he felt it was important to inform her of this incident. Mark did not yet know that Daisy was the one who had called the police. When Daisy answered the phone, he immediately began his story. He told Daisy what had just happened to him. He asked her if any officers had visited her as well. Daisy was very surprised. She couldn't figure out how Mark hadn't tapped this from her. So, was the story of the chip not true, then? How could it be that Jayden was acting so strangely every day at the same time Daisy decided to be honest with Mark? She told him that she was the one who had called the police. She concluded that she was wrong about the chip. She told him she didn't trust Mark since he had sent her the nasty letter. Mark understood. He recognized that it was not pleasant of him to send her this letter. He understood that this made Daisy suspicious. He explained that he did this on a whim and did not mean what he had put on paper, but now that it had settled down, there was still Jayden's strange behavior. Daisy asked Mark if Jayden also stared at something in his pants at his house in the afternoon. For a long time, this was indeed the case. Mark also found this strange but thought it was part of Jayden's age. He had not given this any further thought. When Daisy told him that Jayden did this every day at the exact same time, Mark thought it did get a lot weirder. He hadn't noticed this before, but now that he started thinking about it, this was indeed the case. The two decided to act together. Daisy and Mark agreed to take Jayden to the doctor together. It didn't seem right to them that Jayden was having this behavior. Maybe the doctor knew where this behavior was coming from, and if not, maybe he could investigate it next. They went straight to the hospital. When they arrived at the doctor's office, they explained the story. The doctor had never heard this before. At first, he had no idea where this behavior had come from. At least this was not part of Jayden's age. As Mark first thought, the doctor decided to examine Jayden. He measured his temperature, listened to his heart, felt his stomach, and looked at his ears. He also asked if Jayden was eating and drinking properly. After his examination, he concluded that Jayden was just perfectly healthy. But where was his behavior coming from? It was now 12 or 13 o'clock. Jayden had shown his crazy behavior this very day at home when he was with Daisy. The doctor wanted to see this for himself. Then maybe he could better figure out where Jayden's behavior was coming from. They made a new appointment. Daisy and Mark were able to visit with Jayden right away the next day. They had set the appointment for noon so the doctor could see what Jayden had been doing for several weeks. But something remarkable happened around 12 or 13 o'clock. Jayden did not do what he always did when he was with Daisy or Mark. They didn't understand any of it. The doctor didn't understand either. How come Jayden wasn't staring down his pants now that the doctor was looking for an explanation? Was there something different about the setting that made Jayden not do it? Now, that might have been the cause, since the doctor was interested in finding out why Jayden was exhibiting this strange behavior not only for himself but also for Daisy and Mark. They made another appointment. The doctor asked if he could visit Daisy. He asked if Jayden could attend and if it was possible to come at noon. Daisy agreed. Of course, she was still looking for the cause. When the doctor came by, Jayden showed his usual behavior again. At 12 or 13, he began staring down his pants. The doctor took a good look at the situation. He thought he had found a possible cause for this. For sure, though, he had to visit Mark's house first. Jayden had to be present, and he wanted to come by again at noon. Mark was fine with this. The next day, the doctor came to Mark's house again. Jayden did whatever he had done at Daisy's house. The doctor was now almost certain. He needed to double-check one more thing before deciding. Daisy. Mark needed to bring Jayden to his office one more time, this time at noon. They still wanted to know what was going on with Jayden, so they decided to agree to this. The next day, they drove Jayden to the hospital when it was almost 12. The doctor did something remarkable. He turned on the radio to the same station that Daisy and Mark always had on. They didn't understand why the doctor did this. Wasn't he supposed to examine Jayden? Why was he busy with the radio? Meanwhile, it was 12:30 p.m. Jayden began to stare down his pants. He did it this time. The doctor was certain he had figured out why Jayden was acting this way. It was nothing to be worried about. This could be unlearned just fine. It had to do with the radio station. Every day at 12:35 p.m., a DJ begins a live set with dance music. This is the trigger for Jayden to exhibit his behavior. But how is this possible? Daisy and Mark wondered about it. The doctor explained that Jayden probably saw this on TV once and started imitating it. This can be unlearned by pulling Jayden's pants up when he shows the strange behavior and rewarding him afterwards with candy, for example. This way, he knows he is not supposed to show this behavior. Daisy and Mark are going to follow the doctor's advice. They expect this to work out just fine. They are glad they now know where their son's behavior is coming from and that there is nothing to be concerned about. Jayden is a super healthy boy, and he is doing well. What did you think of this story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video and subscribe. New videos are uploaded daily.